Marcus Sawyer. Welcome you to AI and Recruiting, the show where they break down how AI is transforming hiring, leadership, and the future of work. Expect real talk, smart tools, and bold conversations with the people shaping what's next. Let's get into it.
Ainsley Castro Charles, how are you?
Good. How are you, Marcus?
Doing really well. That's the first time I think I've said your full name.
I know. It's extra long now.
Amazing. Congratulations. Well, look, I wanted to have a discussion with you because you've been in the staffing and recruiting space for some time now, but also the work that you're doing is super important, impactful, and I think it's something that everybody should be aware of. And we're now at this crossroad between, as we were talking about earlier, skills-based hiring and also AI and ensuring that people get access to opportunity. So why don't you tell those listening in the audience a little bit about your background and how you got to the position that you're in right now?
Yeah, so that is, I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. So I actually am a career transitioner, if that's what you want to call it. I worked for 9.5 years in alternative investments in banking. So I worked in finance and accounting, and I had an opportunity to volunteer and teach a financial literacy course at the wealth management firm that I was working at, and loved it. I wanted to be able to do that within my own community, but do it on a larger scale. And so I came across our parent company, Europe United, where I joined the team to help young adults gain a professional career through a 1-year-long internship program. So they do 6 months of technical training and 6 months of a corporate internship. And I actually got to work primarily out of one of the employers that I had worked at. And so full circle, still was able to be in the financial industry. When I transitioned to work for UPro Placement, it was to work very closely not only with our talent out of the Boston area, which is where I'm located, it was to work with our alumni nationally. So being able to work in staffing that is solely dedicated as a public benefit subsidiary of Europe United, we focus on hiring and connecting our employers with skilled first talent, specifically folks that have just successfully completed their internship program and are looking for a job. And that has been such a blessing and an honor to be able to connect young adults who are eager and determined to find the next step in their career pathways and connecting them to, let's say, like an employer or a career opportunity. For me, it feels like I'm a career agent. I am helping someone. I'm like, you have a travel agent. They help you get to the next place. I'm a career agent. I'll help you get connected to the next place.
Amazing. Amazing. And I think we need more career agents. We're building AI agents to help people get connected. And I think that from the standpoint of just being a human being and trying to help somebody along that path and get to the next step, it's super important. So skills-based hiring has been quite a big topic, I'd say, definitely in the last few years. Remember when I was at Adecco Group and we were building platforms in particular that were focused on connecting people with skills. And that was 6 or 7 years ago. And more recently, I had a discussion just with somebody this week. And I'm thinking a lot about that kind of word around skills-based hiring and whether or not that's going to continue, because the AI could do that. But I think what you do is very different. Why don't you talk a little bit about how maybe technology could potentially, if you be excluding some people who have high potential, but on paper, maybe it's a little bit difficult for you to see that.
I have a really good example, actually, that happened about 2 weeks ago. We had an employer that came to us seeking out skills first specific talent to fill some of their entry level needs. They had a high demand of looking for about 160 of these types of candidates they were seeking. And it was a specific role focused on business operations and more of a sales component. And when they reached out to us, they shared, whatever candidates that you have, please send them over. We also have an in-person event in Dallas. We'd love to meet them in person. So we had a couple of folks, we had about 7 go in person in Dallas to interview, and we got 3 of them hired. And the 3 that were hired, we were like, okay, great, this is fantastic. So they came back and they said, we want to do more. Like, can you submit to this job application all of the candidates that you think would be interested in this role nationally? Let's widen up let's widen the gap. Let's look at this talent pipeline. And so when we submitted candidates, a few of them were rejected. And the folks that were rejected were talent that had an IT background. And their comment back to us was, this skill in the IT background is not a good fit for specifically this role, because we don't think that they'll be interested in this type of opportunity. Now, there is some validity to that possibly the talent would leave and go to another IT role. However, there were some candidates that were eager to get into this role to also be successful in the business operations sales role that they actually had at the organization. What they did not know is that the 3 folks that they hired at the in-person event were actually IT candidates. So they actually had a background in IT. They had done help desk support as an internship, and they met them in person. So when I brought that to their attention, they were like, what? Like, I had no idea that, we didn't do the interview. It was someone else that did the interview. I said, well, there is obviously a gap, because in person, you hired them. You were so excited. You came back to us saying you wanted more.
So Ainsley, what was the outcome? What happened?
They actually had to go back and check on the list of candidates we submitted, and then were able to, the folks that were rejected, they went back to them and re-interviewed them, and they actually hired about 3 more of those candidates from the list that we sent, because they recognized that there was a bias already within their own ATS that was already screening out candidates that were eligible.
Well, I think this goes back to a topic around inclusion and what that means. And I think a lot of people think that inclusion is about narrowing down, but really it's about widening the funnel at the top end and giving more people access to opportunity, which widens the aperture for that company and that organization. They now have more access to high quality talent. I'm glad that they've done that, and that you at least sounds like you had a great relationship with them because you were able to spot it. And I think that's why relationships are going to be also really important with hiring, whether that's technology, using AI to hire, and the person or the company that you're working with. So you have an understanding of the process. I was on a call just yesterday and somebody was asking, hey, how does the product work? Like all this type of stuff. And they were talking about the tools. And I had to take a few steps back, and as I always do, and I'm like, what problem are you trying to solve? And let's understand the process. Because if we can understand the process of where you're trying to get to, we can make that process, whether it's more inclusive, more seamless for the candidates and things of that nature. How do you think that staffing and recruiting leaders should reframe this AI discussion, not as a replacement for recruiters, because obviously even in that scenario, it's not doing that, but as a multiplier that frees humans up to do the work that they can do?
Honestly, I just truly believe that AI is there to be, as you mentioned, like the agents are there to help relieve us of some of the admin tasks and some of the mundane things that need to be done throughout the day, and really giving you time to focus on human interaction and building trust between clients. Yep. And I think that people, when they're implementing AI, I think there's a lot of fear about the loss of jobs and opportunities, but really what it's doing is it's actually alleviating some of the work that can take up so much time out of your day, but now giving you the ability to truly focus on the skills and the things that matter. Like, what is the problem? How can we address it without having to really focus on the process and the way that things are getting done?
Yeah. And so when you look at some of these solutions or these tools, like what ultimately separates AI solutions that get adopted from those that are ignored from like a buyer's side? Because you're also a buyer of some of these solutions. Like, what are you looking for?
The tools that I have seen that are going to win are going to be the ones that have is human-centered and give recruiters more time to do the meaningful work. And when an AI helps the recruiter shine, rather than sidelining them, that it really will take off. but I'm also thinking about being able on the sales side, even for staffing, to really take that time to focus and deepen relationships with our partners and being able to really dedicate the time to integration and transparency. That type of adoption is more important because it helps us create a human-centered AI. Like that helps earn our trust. And not just for us, but also for our partners and for our candidates that we're working. Like AI should be an enhancement of judgment, not replace it.
And I think some of the things that you mentioned around trust are key, because that goes back to building relationships, and relationships are built upon trust. And if you have a baseline trust with an organization, an individual, there's more opportunities for you to move forward together. And I think the other thing that you said, which I love, is how do we make people that are in the space shine, right? Not taken away from what they did, but how do you help them to shine and do their best? And I think that if you think about the work that you've been doing, it's important work, because the candidate wants to make sure that they are getting through the funnel and they're at least getting the opportunity to show what they can do. And we talked at the start of the conversation around skills-based hiring and the program that you provide, which really is there to help the candidate shine, to show their full potential. How do you think we can like mitigate against the fact of like candidates that are just not being seen? Because you're providing agency right now, but there are candidates that like just don't actually get seen. What's a practical way to ensure that they get in front of the right people?
Yeah, I mean, as an employer, if I want to make sure that I'm seeing the right candidates, I'm going to have to do my own work internally. And so the starting point would be doing an audit of your own job descriptions, right? And also thinking, this is the question that oftentimes I'll pose to our employers, is like, where could an incredible candidate get screened out before we even meet them? Like, right. Where in the process do you think that they're going to not be met? And I think when you start questioning, and my job is to partner with employers to ask some of those questions, like help uncover where is it? Because one of our focuses here at UPro Placement is to focus on skills. And so when we're learning through an intake call on the skill sets that are required, we're not just looking at a job description, we're asking questions about the type of skill sets. So, it may be in consideration that the employer may want to rewrite a job description to match the real skills that are needed. Remove a degree filter. Maybe the degree is not necessary. We want to focus on more rigid experience. Updating their ATS settings that elevate the competencies and transferable skills, or using an assessment of some sort to help them measure ability. As for our candidates, it's being sure that you're having the resume that is transferable to that type of job in that skill set, and finding the right type of employers. I think of matching our candidates much like, matching for a dating match. You want to make sure that the candidate is not only just the job is not just a good fit for the candidate, but that the candidate also is just as interested. It has to go both ways in being able to determine what type of organization and culture they will thrive in.
Yeah, I think a lot of the challenges have been that people have been trying to match paper to paper, so resume to job. Yeah. And as the candidates start to get more access, even at this point in time, whether they're using AI to revamp their resumes, the candidates are not necessarily who they say they are in some scenarios. Yeah. And also the employers' jobs are not what you think they are either, because it's AI to AI. And it takes this translation. And I was talking about this with somebody yesterday. It's not about what somebody has done. It's not important. It's about what they can do.
Yes.
And if you can figure out how to match for that, because if you're hiring even in a sports team right now, you're not hiring for all the games that they've produced in. You're hiring for them to win a championship next season, the season after. So as you organize that team, you look at where people can fit in. And I think the other thing that's undervalued, I think you touched on it a little bit, is like, are they a good fit for the employer? Now, the employer is a multitude of things, because the employer is the company, it's the hiring manager, it's the work environment, it's the team that they fit in. So if you take all of those dynamics and you think about, is this person going to be a great fit?
Mhm.
I think that's what gets you closer to finding the right people not getting screened out at the start and automating process. And I also feel like there's a challenge with just questions or requirements that are being asked just because they've been asked for the last 10 years. So we still just keep that in there.
Yes.
And that screens
Yeah.
people out as well. It used to screen me out all the time when you look at like, oh, do you really need a degree for this particular role? Or do you,
Yeah.
like, well, doesn't seem like you need a degree to be doing this particular type of work.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the good things that we've done at UPro Placement, because we do provide professional coaching to our talent while they're on assignment. And it is for the talent and for the hiring manager, because like you said, like an employer is a multitude of different things. That is not just the hiring manager, that is the culture, the work environment, the style of the team, like team dynamic. And when we are working closely with our partners, what strengthens that is that there is a common goal in mind where everyone understands. The question shifts from like, where did you learn a skill to whether you can do it?
Right.
Can you do the skill, and can you come into the workplace and can you apply it in the same way? And I think that when we start working closely through our professional coaching sessions with our contractors and apprentices, managers come back and they're like, oh my God, like I didn't realize how much I needed that to help me understand where our talent is coming from, but also how do I continue to upskill them and help them get better in that role. And then they end up getting hired because they just really love them during the coaching session. And it gives them that time to really get to know. And again, like that human interaction.
Yeah, look, and obviously we're a customer somewhat because we've hired somebody from the organization, and
Yeah.
one of the things that I always think about is the ability to learn. So not what have you learned now, but how much can you learn?
Yeah.
I was interviewed years ago and somebody talked to me around capacity, which is almost like the hard drive of the computer. Like, how much can you take on? And if you can take on more than the average, you're going to do just fine because data information is coming at people at light speed. We're getting towards the tail end, but one of the things that I think that's super important. So we talked a lot about AI. We talked about the programs. We talked about the fact that you have a process that allows not only for people to be screened out, really, is screened in. So even when things are going wrong, you've got relationships with your customers. What role do you think that genuine human interaction will play in the future of recruiting as AI starts to accelerate, and how can leaders intentionally create more of these high value moments? What should people be doing?
I think a 5-minute conversation can truly change someone's career path in like any way that like no algorithm can. And and honestly, like AI has been changing so fast and has impacted everyone's work. But what I didn't realize is about like 2 months ago, someone invited me to an in-person event, and I was hesitant. It's been a while since you've been in person working from home. And so I go into this event and I met so many amazing people and interactions and partnerships, and not even thinking that that was going to be the outcome. And I said, wow, I forgot how powerful a human interaction can be. And I don't think I think that a lot of people think that that's going to be gone. But I think that as people see AI accelerating, the human interaction will be just as valuable for individuals, because that is the component that helps build relationships, build trust, build partnerships. I'll learn more from someone from a conversation than I will through an AI agent sometimes. Like, yeah, I can find the facts and the details, but I can't hear their laugh. I can't hear what makes them sad. I can't hear their tone in the same way. So I think those are the things when I think about partnerships, and even leveraging like the EQ app now for our business. Like, this is giving us an opportunity to really like give us the chance to leverage, take advantage of the administrative tasks being done by an AI agent, and be really taking time to focus on developing those relationships and strengthening them.
No, really, I think that's super insightful, Ainsley. And my big takeaway is a 5-minute conversation can change somebody's career path. And we think about unlocking access to opportunity, which is our purpose. And the mission is zero admin. So we want to spend less time on the administration, less time you going through like pushing paper, basically, which is what some recruiting is turned into, and more time creating the environment to have those 5 minutes that leads to 10 minute that leads to career changing moments and opportunities. So really appreciate that. Ainsley, is there anything that you want to make sure that you leave the audience with before we depart? Anything that you want to ensure that people know about you or your organization, Year Pro Placement?
I would say skills first hiring and AI are not opposing forces in any way. I see them as partners. When we modernize the systems and center humanity, we build pathways that work for both employers and the talent. And I'm just excited to see where this takes the industry and how this allows us to open up more doors for our talent.
Amazing. Well, Ainsley Castro Charles, it's been a fantastic discussion with you. Thank you for sharing your insights and also the amazing work that you're doing at Year Pro Placement and connecting people, not just on what they have done, but what they can do. And I know that you're going to have many more 5-minute conversations that are going to change people's lives. So excited to hear how they go and looking forward to our next discussion.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you soon.
If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in your network, your team, your boss, or that recruiter still stuck in 2015. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss what's next in hiring and AI. Until next time.